The night he thought he won. If there's one thing I've learned about humiliation, it's this. It never arrives quietly. It crashes into the room wearing a tuxedo, holding a champagne flute, and smiling like it owns the place. I was adjusting the thin strap of my black silk gown when I heard his laugh. Sharp, familiar, unmistakable. The sound sliced straight through the ballroom of the Langston Hotel, past the crystal chandeliers and string quartet, and lodged itself somewhere between my ribs. Evan Brooks. My ex-husband. The man who once promised me forever, and then publicly traded me in for a woman 12 years younger, and allergic to commitment. I hadn't seen him in almost 2 years. Not since the divorce papers were finalized and he'd sent that smug, one-line email. Wishing you the best. Truly. I should have known the best would eventually involve a charity gala and an audience. The Langstons' grand ballroom glittered like old money and new egos. Boston Brahmin families, tech founders, hedge fund managers, and political donors packed the room, all dressed in carefully curated generosity. The banners read Hope for Harbor Youth, an organization I'd volunteered with long before Evan decided philanthropy looked good on LinkedIn. I was here because I believed in the cause. Evan was here because he believed in being seen. I took a slow breath, straightened my spine, and reminded myself of the rules I'd learned since the divorce. 1. Don't flinch. 2. Don't explain. 3. Never let them see you bleed. Still, my fingers trembled slightly as I reached for my clutch. Marianne. I turned to see Julia Henderson, one of the board members, her pearls glowing softly under the lights. You made it, she said warmly. I'm so glad. Wouldn't miss it, I replied and meant it. Even now. Her eyes flicked past me for half a second, long enough for me to know she'd spotted Evan too. Awkward sympathy flashed across her face before she masked it with professional cheer. Well, enjoy the evening. We've got some surprises planned. If only she knew. I found my seat near the middle of the room. Evan was at a front table, of course. Prime visibility. He looked exactly the same, tailored navy tux, silver cufflinks I'd bought him for our 5th anniversary, that effortless confidence that once made me feel safe and now made my stomach churn. Beside him sat Lila. She was stunning in that aggressively effortless way. Sleek hair, backless dress, skin glowing like she'd never known stress or a student loan. She leaned in close to Evan, laughing at something he whispered, her manicured hand resting possessively on his arm. I'd seen her Instagram once. Accidentally. A mutual friend had tagged Evan at a vineyard, and curiosity had betrayed me. Living my best life, the caption had read. Apparently so was he. The MC tapped the microphone and the room hushed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight in support of Hope for Harbor Youth. I tried to focus on the speech, on the cause, on the kids who needed funding for after-school programs and mentorship. But then Evan stood. My chest tightened. He wasn't scheduled to speak. I knew the program. Yet there he was, smiling broadly as the MC handed him the microphone. And now, she said, we have a few words from one of our generous donors, Evan Brooks. Polite applause rippled through the room. Evan cleared his throat, flashing that familiar grin. The one that always came right before he took up too much space. Thank you, he said. It's an honor to be here tonight supporting such an important cause. I stared straight ahead, my jaw clenched. He went on about giving back, about responsibility, about community. The usual polished nonsense. Then he laughed lightly. And of course, he continued, none of this would have been possible without learning a few hard lessons along the way. My pulse spiked. I used to believe that loyalty alone was enough, he said. That staying in something, anything, was noble, even when it stopped growing. A few people chuckled knowingly. I felt heat crawl up my neck. But sometimes, Evan said, glancing pointedly in my direction, you have to be brave enough to admit a mistake, to move on, to choose better. The room laughed. Actually laughed. I didn't move, didn't blink. Lila squeezed his arm approvingly. After all, he added, raising his glass, growth requires letting go of the past. His eyes locked on mine. To new beginnings. The applause was louder this time. It took everything in me not to stand up and walk out. Instead, I smiled. A small, controlled curve of the lips. Because here's the thing Evan never understood about me. Not during our marriage, not during the divorce, and certainly not now. I don't forget humiliation. I catalog it. I let it sharpen me. And while Evan thought this was his victory lap, what he didn't know, what no one in that ballroom knew, was that I hadn't come here unarmed. I took a sip of my champagne and met his gaze, holding it just long enough for doubt to flicker across his face. Enjoy the spotlight, Evan. You won't have it for long. The marriage everyone envied. People used to stop me in grocery stores to tell me how lucky I was. I'm not exaggerating. Once in the frozen foods aisle at Whole Foods, a woman I'd never met leaned over my cart and said, "You're Evan Brooks' wife, right? You two are just goals." I smiled, thanked her, and went home to a house where my husband barely looked up from his phone. That was the thing about Evan. From the outside, he was impeccable. Successful venture capitalist. Generous donor. Devoted husband. The kind of man mothers pointed out to their daughters and said, "That's the one." And I believed it too. For a long time. We met in our late 20s, both freshly minted adults with ambition humming under our skin. Evan had just landed his first major investment win. I was working in nonprofit development, juggling donor meetings by day and grant proposals by night. We bonded over long hours, takeout dinners, and the shared fantasy that we were building something meaningful. When he proposed, it felt inevitable. The wedding was a tasteful blur of ivory and eucalyptus, held at a restored estate outside Cambridge. My parents cried. His colleagues toasted us as a power couple. I remember Evan whispering in my ear during our first dance, "We're unstoppable." For a while it felt true. But success has a way of revealing character. And Evan's character was selective. As his career skyrocketed, my role quietly shrank. At first, it was subtle. "Do you really need to work so late?" he'd ask. "We don't need the money." Then it became strategic. "You're so good at people," he'd say. "You make me look polished. Come to the gala with me instead." Eventually, it was expected. I went from leading projects to being Evan's plus one. From advocating for causes I believed in to smiling beside donation checks with his name printed larger than the charity's logo. Every time I raised concern, Evan waved it off. "You're being sensitive. You're reading too much into it. This is just how the world works." And maybe that was the first crack, realizing that his world only worked if I stayed quiet. The affair didn't begin with lipstick on a collar or mysterious texts. It began with indifference. Late nights became normal. Business trips multiplied. Conversations turned transactional. "How was your day?" "Fine." "Mine too." When I finally confronted him, really confronted him, it was after I'd seen the calendar invite. A recurring strategy meeting every Thursday evening. Same time. Same restaurant. Same woman. Her name was Lila Chen, a junior partner at a startup Evan was advising. I remember sitting at our kitchen island, laptop open, heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. When Evan walked in, loosening his tie, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just turned the screen toward him. "What is this?" He stared at it for a moment too long. Then he sighed. That sigh, the one that suggested I was the inconvenience, told me everything. "I was going to tell you," he said. "That sentence should be illegal." The truth spilled out with astonishing calm. He wasn't even ashamed. He framed it like a mutual realization, a natural evolution. "We've grown apart, Marianne. She understands me. This doesn't have to be ugly." When I asked how long it had been going on, he shrugged. "Does it matter?" It mattered to me, but not to him. The divorce was swift and surgical. Evan had lawyers ready before I finished packing my suitcase. He kept the house. I kept my dignity barely. At least, that's what I told myself. What he didn't keep was the narrative. Because Evan is very good at controlling stories. By the time the ink dried on the divorce papers, whispers had already taken shape. I was difficult, unsupportive, resistant to change. Once at a fundraiser, I overheard a woman say, "Well, not everyone can handle success." I knew exactly whose version she'd heard. That night, standing in the Langston ballroom while Evan toasted to growth, all of it came flooding back. The silencing, the sidelining, the way he rewrote our marriage as a phase he'd outgrown. I excused myself to the restroom before the tears could betray me. The marble bathroom was quiet, the kind of quiet that echoes your thoughts back at you. I braced my hands against the sink and stared at my reflection. I looked composed, elegant, untouched. Good. Because that was the version of me Evan had never bothered to understand. The one who observed, adapted, and waited. After the divorce, I didn't implode the way people expected. I didn't disappear. I rebuilt. While Evan paraded Lila through donor dinners and magazine features, I returned to the work I'd always loved. Quietly. Hope for Harbor Youth wasn't just a charity I supported. It was an organization I helped restructure. I connected them with funding pipelines. I streamlined their donor outreach. I introduced them to people Evan didn't even know existed. People with real power. No press. No applause. Just results. By the time Evan reappeared in my orbit tonight, I wasn't the woman he'd left behind. I was something else entirely. Back in the ballroom, dessert was being served. Lila laughed loudly at Evan's table, soaking up attention like it was oxygen. He leaned in, whispering something that made her blush. I caught fragments of conversation as I passed. His ex. So bitter. Can't believe she showed up. I took my seat again, heart steady now. Let them talk. They had no idea what was coming. When the MC returned to the stage, her voice bright with anticipation, I felt the shift in the room. "And now," she said, "we have a very special announcement." Evan straightened, clearly assuming this was for him. It wasn't. She smiled directly at me. "We'd like to recognize someone whose contributions to Hope for Harbor Youth have been transformational. Someone who has worked tirelessly behind the scenes without asking for credit." The spotlight began to move. And this time, it stopped on me. When the spotlight shifted, for half a second, I was certain the spotlight had landed on me by mistake. That kind of mistake happens in movies, not in real life. Certainly not to women like me, the ones who learn early how to take up as little space as possible. But the light didn't move. It stayed fixed, warm and unyielding, illuminating my table, my face, my very still hands folded neatly in my lap. The applause came slowly at first, confused and uneven, like rain hitting pavement after a long drought. Heads turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. I saw people lean toward one another, whispering questions they didn't yet have answers to. Evan froze. Not dramatically, he was too practiced for that, but something in his posture tightened. His smile faltered, just a fraction, like a mask slipping when the string snaps. Lila frowned, glancing between him and me, clearly trying to understand why the woman she'd been told was irrelevant was suddenly center stage. I stood. The room went quiet. I walked toward the stage in heels I'd chosen carefully, not too high, not too showy. Practical elegance. The kind of shoes a woman wears when she expects to be standing for a long time. The MC leaned in and whispered, "Thank you," as she handed me the microphone. Her eyes were kind, respectful. That alone told me everything. I turned to face the room. For a moment I didn't speak. Silence can be powerful when you let it stretch. "I didn't expect this," I began, my voice steady, calm. "But I'm deeply grateful." From the corner of my eye, I saw Evan shift in his chair. He was watching me now, really watching, for the first time in years. I started working with Hope for Harbor Youth because I believe in second chances, I continued. For kids who grow up without safety nets, without the luxury of reinvention. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Over the past 2 years, I said, this organization has expanded mentorship programs, secured sustainable funding, and partnered with local businesses to create real opportunities for young people. I paused, and I'm proud to have played a role in that. Applause swelled, stronger now. Real. I felt it in my chest. But I wasn't done. I've learned something important in the process, I said. Impact doesn't always come from the loudest voice in the room. That one landed. I caught Evan's eyes then. Held them. Sometimes, I continued, the most meaningful work happens quietly, consistently, without needing validation. The applause erupted. I smiled, nodded my thanks, and stepped away from the microphone before anyone could stop me, before Evan could find his footing again. As I returned to my seat, Julia squeezed my hand. Well done, she whispered. Across the room, Evan leaned toward Lila, whispering urgently now. Her expression had shifted from smug to uncertain. She glanced at me, then at the people suddenly approaching my table. Board members, donors, community leaders, people Evan had spent years trying to impress. And now, they wanted to talk to me. Marianne, incredible work. We had no idea. You've really transformed things. I answered politely, warmly, the way I'd learned to do in rooms full of power. But I was acutely aware of Evan watching, his jaw tight, his carefully curated world cracking at the edges. He stood abruptly. Excuse me, he said to Lila, already moving toward me. The conversations around my table faltered as he approached. The air changed. People sensed tension the way animals sense storms. Marianne, he said, his tone light but strained. That was unexpected. So was your speech, I replied pleasantly. His lips twitched. I didn't realize you were so involved here. I didn't realize you thought I wasn't, I said. A few nearby guests pretended not to listen very badly. Evan laughed softly. Well, good for you. There it was. The condescension, repackaged as praise. I mean, he continued, lowering his voice, you always did better when someone else handled the big picture. I met his gaze calmly. You mean when you took credit? The color drained from his face. Lila appeared at his side, eyes sharp now. Is everything okay? Perfect, I said before Evan could respond. We were just catching up. Her gaze flicked between us. You didn't tell me she was involved. Evan stiffened. I didn't think it was relevant, he said. That hurt him more than anything I could have said. Before the conversation could spiral further, the MC returned to the stage. And now, she announced, we're excited to reveal tonight's final initiative. A large screen descended behind her. This year, she continued, Hope for Harbor Youth is launching a new endowment, one that will secure our programs for the next decade. Gasps rippled through the room. This endowment, the MC said, smiling, was made possible through a lead partnership negotiated and secured by Marianne Whitfield. My name echoed. The screen lit up with figures. Real numbers. Serious money. I heard someone behind me whisper, "That's huge." Evan stared at the screen like it had personally betrayed him. The MC wasn't finished. The partner organization, she said, has also requested that Marianne join our board as vice chair, effective immediately. Applause thundered. I stood again, heart racing now, not with fear, but with something dangerously close to joy. Evan didn't clap. Lila slowly pulled her hand away from his arm. I felt him approach again, this time with less confidence. Marianne, he said, voice tight. We should talk. We are, I replied calmly. Not here. I tilted my head. Why not? His eyes darted around the room. People were watching openly now. "This isn't appropriate," he hissed. I smiled. "You made our marriage inappropriate when you turned it into a punchline," I said quietly. "This is just context." Lila's face hardened. "Evan, you told me she was bitter, that she couldn't move on." I looked at her then, not with anger, but clarity. "I did," I said. Her jaw tightened. She looked at Evan like she was seeing him for the first time. "I think," she said coldly, "you left out some details." She walked away. Just like that. Evan watched her go, stunned. For the first time all night he looked small. "Marianne," he said, softer now. "We didn't end on good terms, but—" "You ended it publicly," I replied. "I just finished it properly." He swallowed. I leaned in, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "You wanted growth?" I said. "This is what it looks like when it's real." Then I stepped back. The room swallowed me up again, warm, approving, alive with possibility. And Evan? He stood alone at his table, the applause echoing around him, realizing far too late. He wasn't the main character anymore. The stories people start telling. Power doesn't disappear quietly. It resists. It claws. It tries to reassert itself. Evan tried all three. I didn't notice at first. I was too busy answering questions, shaking hands, and accepting congratulations that felt, if I'm honest, long overdue. People wanted to know how the endowment came together, who the partner was, how long I'd been involved. 2 years, I kept saying. Every time, Evan flinched like he'd been slapped. 2 years. The same amount of time since he'd decided I was obsolete. I was midway through a conversation with a state senator's wife when I felt it. The shift behind me. The sudden, tight energy of someone determined to reclaim control. Evan's voice cut in. "Marianne, there you are." The woman I was speaking with raised an eyebrow. "Everything all right?" "Perfect," I said smoothly. "Evan and I were just reconnecting." That word again. Reconnecting. Evan hated it because it implied separation had been his loss too. He laughed, too loudly. "I was just telling people how proud I am of you." A lie, delivered with confidence. "And how supportive you were of my work," I added pleasantly. His smile froze. "That's not what I meant." "I know," I said. "But stories evolve." The senator's wife smiled knowingly and excused herself. Evan leaned in, lowering his voice. "You didn't have to embarrass me like this." I stared at him. "You embarrassed yourself. I just stopped protecting you." His jaw clenched. "You're enjoying this." I didn't deny it. "What do you want?" he asked. I considered him for a moment. The man I once loved. The man who thought I was small because I didn't shout. "I want you," I said calmly, "to stop pretending you built your life alone." His eyes darkened. "Careful." "Why?" I asked. "You already told everyone I was the past." Before he could respond, Julia appeared at my side. "Marianne, the board would love a word," she said pointedly, glancing at Evan with polite dismissal. I nodded. "Of course." As I walked away, I felt Evan's stare burning into my back. That's when the whispers began. They started near the bar, where people felt bold. Then near the dessert table, where sugar loosened tongues. I didn't know she did all that. He always talked like it was him. Funny how successful she is without him. The narrative Evan had curated for years, carefully, meticulously, was unraveling in real time. And the thing about high society rooms? They love a fall from grace. I stepped out onto the terrace for air. The city lights shimmered beyond the railing, cold and honest. My hands shook now, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I felt someone beside me. Lila. She didn't look angry. She looked disappointed. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. I turned to her. "You don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do," she replied. I believed him. I said nothing. "He told me you were resentful," she continued. That you couldn't accept being left behind. I almost laughed. I should have asked more questions, she said. But it was easier not to. It usually is, I replied. She studied me for a moment. You're impressive. Thank you. She exhaled. I don't think Evan likes impressive women. No, I said gently. He likes reflected light. Her mouth tightened. That explains a lot. Inside the ballroom, applause erupted again. Another donor announcement, another win. But I could feel Evan spiraling, grasping for footing. And then he made his final mistake. He went to the microphone. Unscheduled. Uninvited. I turned just in time to hear his voice crackle through the speakers. I'd like to say something, Evan said, forcing a smile. Briefly. The room hesitated. People glanced toward the board table. This was not on the agenda. I think it's important, he continued, to acknowledge that success is rarely individual, that behind every accomplishment. I felt my stomach drop. Oh no, he was going to do it. There are sacrifices made by others, Evan said, including those who may not always appreciate the bigger picture. A collective inhale swept the room. I moved toward the stage, but Julia beat me to it. Evan, she said firmly, stepping beside him, hand gently but decisively on his arm. This isn't appropriate. He pulled away. I'm just offering perspective. No, she said coolly. You're offering revisionist history. Gasps. Evan stared at her. Excuse me. Julia didn't blink. We're very aware of Marianne's contributions. We have been for some time. She gestured to the screen. Emails appeared. Timelines. Documentation. We also happen to know, she continued, that several of the initiatives you've publicly claimed involvement in were declined by you before Marianne secured them independently. Silence. Cold. Absolute. Evan's face went pale. Julia wasn't finished. This organization values integrity, she said. And tonight is about honoring that. She took the microphone from his hand. I think it's best we move on. The applause that followed was not polite. It was decisive. Evan stepped back, stunned, exposed, stripped of the armor he'd worn so effortlessly for years. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. As people resumed conversations, I watched Evan retreat, to the edge of the room, to the margins he'd once assigned me. That's when I understood something fundamental. The last laugh isn't loud. It's permanent. The last laugh. The gala didn't end with fireworks or dramatic exits. It ended the way all real reckonings do, with people choosing where to stand. Evan left early. Not immediately, not in a flurry of scandal. He lingered just long enough to save face, just long enough to pretend he wasn't being avoided. But the gravitational pull he once commanded was gone. Conversations thinned around him. Invitations evaporated mid-sentence. When he finally slipped out, no one followed. I noticed because the space he'd occupied felt lighter. I stayed. I stayed for the thank yous, the logistics, the planning meetings that bloomed in corners of the ballroom like seedlings after a storm. I stayed because this work, this momentum was mine. Not borrowed. Not reflected. When the night wound down and the staff began clearing glasses, Julia joined me near the exit. You handled that with grace, she said. I handled it with restraint, I replied. Grace came later. She laughed. We're very glad you're stepping into this role. So am I. Outside, the cold air hit my face like truth. I wrapped my coat tighter and breathed in deeply. The city hummed, taxis, laughter, life continuing as it always does. My phone buzzed. Evan, we need to talk. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed back. No, we don't. I blocked the number. It felt ceremonial. In the weeks that followed, the story settled into its final shape. Not the one Evan would have chosen, but the one that fit. People stopped asking me what happened in the marriage. They started asking me what I was building next. Hope for Harbor Youth launched the endowment with press coverage that focused on outcomes, not drama. I sat in meetings where my voice carried weight without needing translation. Decisions were made. Futures were funded. One afternoon, as I reviewed proposals in my office, I caught my reflection in the glass. I looked peaceful. Not triumphant. Not vengeful. Free. A mutual acquaintance mentioned Evan once, carefully. "He's recalibrating," she said. I nodded. "We all do eventually." She hesitated. "Do you ever regret how it ended?" I thought about the gala. The laughter. The silence afterward. "No," I said. "I regret how long I stayed quiet." Months later, I attended another fundraiser. Different venue. Different crowd. Same cause. I wore a red dress this time. Not subtle, not apologetic. I spoke briefly, thanked my team, and stepped away from the microphone before applause could inflate into ego. As I returned to my seat, a young woman stopped me. "I just wanted to say," she said, voice steady but eyes bright. "Watching you made me feel like I don't have to shrink to be respected." I swallowed. "You don't," I said. "Ever." That was the moment I realized something important. The last laugh isn't about humiliation. It's about liberation. Evan had tried to reduce me to a footnote in his success story. Instead, I'd become the author of my own. And if he ever laughed again, it wouldn't be at me,